Can XRP really reach 3 digits? If you take the historical price action and lay it out here, we see that the price action is going through the roof and it shows you somewhat like $300. But that's an optimistic view. Can that be possible? How that ever happened in the price history of different assets? How do XRP look like in shorter horizon? If you actually look for the breakout, if you actually look for the movements, do we really see there is a possibility of something like that happening? I'm going to take you guys through my perspective of why I do think that we may actually pop through 3 digits in this cycle, but I really don't think it's going to be close to 300 or 400. But I have to agree on one point. The price action on some of these analysis does show you that it can go towards that range. It can be the extreme scenario. It may take like 2-3 years. We don't know, but the price action does show there is a possibility of a 400x move. Why is it so? Is it valid? Those are important questions to be answered, and that's what we're going to do here right now. Welcome to the Scientific Investor family, where the normal retail guys get to learn how to become the next top 10% of this world. As we look through the market, we are watching some of these are becoming an opportunity, some of these are becoming red flag. All of that is happening in the market right now. And I'm really thankful for any of you guys who are hitting that like button. I'm watching some of these surprises do exist. I want to actually keep this to you guys. Say, last video when I actually uploaded that, I watched that in 3 minutes time. Since I published it, in 3 minutes time, I'm watching there is a dislike, there is another dislike, and I'm like, the video itself is like 15 minutes. So in first 3 minutes, how can you even watch significant part of that video and then say I don't like it? But yeah, that's the market, right? Some of these videos we only see like 1 or 2, but here we saw like 7. But the opposite side is like 600 people hitting that like button. So if you're one of them who believe that here you get value, please do smash that like button for me. Now, let's go through all this one by one. So primary thing, yeah, you are looking for the tokenization of the real world assets. Let it be the real estate, let it be the private equity, stocks, bonds, all of these assets. They're all slowly coming on to this world of blockchain. For sure, there is no doubt. And I'm not saying it's all coming on to XRP Ledger, but we do see the possibilities of, we've announced this, right? Ripple is working with 30 central banks. So we've announced 5 different countries. We are about to do something similar, which is like we have a similar number that are not announced. Great. And 20 plus other active discussions on the way. So that puts you into an area where it's like going on. So if you have a question like, which of these are 5 countries which are announced? It's the Palau, Hong Kong, Montenegro, Colombia, and Bhutan. Yes, all of them are small nations, but Hong Kong is like a financial hub. So it kind of penetrates into that region with the existing standards there. And they also have another 5 to come, which is already, almost at that range, and it's going to come out soon, maybe next couple of months. You will watch that happening. So now when you see central banks are actively working on this ledger, they trust this network. They believe there is enough value in this. They believe value is going to take on further. On the other side, you see there is a lot of struggle. You see all these mass media giving you the idea here saying, okay, soft landing, great, and read this. Companies that are pulling back are also choosing to hold on to workers. The next news, why trucking giant Yellow is at the verge of collapse. So that doesn't really make much of a sense. But that's why when we go through an analysis, we go through a news, we do try to give you guys the right perspective and the detailed explanation of why I think that. So here the dollar broke to the downside. It's retesting, and as of now, the signs of a rejection is slowly coming on, which is a positive thing. Yes, that was a long wick doji, right, indecision candle. But if the next candle actually goes lower, that means bears are entering, which is positive for the assets. That's the timing aspect of things. But then you look at the crypto market in terms of Bitcoin and you see, okay, we may have some pullback. But now let's jump on to XRP. If you actually take a look at XRP, you do understand the fact that we are starting to trend higher and the dollar shows you that it is about to get rejected, which would get more positive vibes or the actual liquidity into the market, which can actually push the price up. So now the question becomes like, okay, against Bitcoin, what are we doing? Is that something positive? If you look for short-term moves, you do understand that we had this trend line, we broke that to the upside. But as you go zooming out, you do see that we had a resistance, right? The horizontal resistance and a macro resistance. So if you actually go looking at the macro chart for XRP Bitcoin, you do see the fact that this was a support before, this turned into a resistance. And when you extend that line, you happen to observe the fact that each time you reach there, the price action slows down. You get sellers entering at that territory. And one thing which we all should keep in mind is the entire 2021 run-up was on the back of this move. Great. Now, come on, look at what's happening. The first micro leg to the upside has already pushed us to reach this territory. So any break of this level would actually create you a massive ROI structure, which would show you like somewhere like 400, 500% move up, say for 20% to the upside, which would actually put you in a category to say like, okay, if that 400% move in XRP should happen against Bitcoin, which is also an appreciating asset, unlike the dollar, that means from the bottom, you are saying that's about to move somewhat like 950%. Remember, back in the time when the XRP did a 80x run up, a crazy run up, this was only 12.5x, which means if you're about to see close to a 10x move here, that means you're about to watch 50, 60, 70x run up in XRP. Now that's against Bitcoin. Now look against Ether. This is a macro pattern which has been there from 2018. You broke that to the upside. Now the only thing which rests in between the macro run up against Ether is this horizontal level, which shows you a huge accumulation range. Now, we cannot deny the fact that this has been the worst time to be in that asset if you are already a bag holder and you are not buying more. It's painful, but right now it shows the fact that we are trying to break this to the upside, and as we do that, you will see macro movement to the upside. So now, these are analysis against Ether and Bitcoin appreciating assets. But then when you come on to XRP USD, now we are looking at the market cycle and say, okay, we went through this phase, we went through this phase. What can we really do in this phase here? That's the biggest question, right? So you zoom in, you're like, okay, this has been the first resistance. Now we do have one resistance here, that was the market cycle top. So if we want to put it like this and say, okay, that's a big run up to the upside, now we are talking about like unimaginable numbers, right? So if you actually look at this, that's like $15 trillion just in XRP. And that's one of the reasons why I told you, like, personally, I don't think that's about to happen. But the charts do suggest that. If that's to happen, that means on the other end, you're watching the dollar collapse, becoming like the Venezuelan currency, where $17 trillion means nothing. Maybe it's like the $5 trillion now. Maybe it's like a $1 trillion now, right? So you will not have the purchasing power at that time. But let's jump on to the analysis side of things. You drop it here at just a leg just below that to actually see whether that's a region which can be justified. So you go into the price action and you observe the fact that, yeah, it was a resistance. It turned into a support. That's important because it's a support resistance zone, right? Now you understand the fact that when the price came back down, it got supported at that range. You broke that to the downside. Why is that important? Because you went back up to retest that range and got rejected. So now I'm like, okay, this kind of shows that the market kind of respected that range. So now you got 1, 2, and 3 touches on the range, which suggests you, okay, somewhere in that range, you have a trend line. So I'm trying to be conservative. And from this point, that shows you like a 400x run up. So in terms of XRP, that's a monster rally, which we are speaking, right? That's sky high. So if we actually take in that to the possible range here, that comes somewhere close to like, $150, $160. Now, do I really think that's going to happen? I think maybe somewhat close to $100, $110, $20, that can still be open to discussion. Why? I'll take you through that. Say, when you look at quant, you do see the possibility like, okay, first run up, it was 100x. It was not small. Then the next run up was a 300x. I always talk to you guys about the elite wave principle, right? Wave 1, you do 1x. Wave 2, you do 2 to 3 times wave 1. That's exactly what we just saw here. Great. Now, keep that in your mind and let's move on to the assets and say like, okay, here we have done 15x, then we have done a 120x and a 30x. Why is this important? Let's look at XRP for that matter, right? If you say that this was a wave 1 and we managed to do something like a 15x, and that also happens to show you a macro pattern which is still valid, now we would put the argument like, okay, let's first forget about this actual run up and try to follow what the market may actually do. So this measured move takes us somewhere close to 15x. Now, isn't that interesting? For me, I would say like, okay, that means the measured move, when we break through this particular range, shows us that from here, this is about to do a great move, which is perfect. Watching a $30 XRP is like, I can say like those who have bought this at 0.3, 0.4 range, when it surpasses $15, $20, they would be like, heart attack would come if you don't take profit. So for sure, you'll have to take profit. You'll have to skim the profits as you go up. There should be an exit plan, but keep this in mind. That's an opportunity. That's a huge opportunity to average up. Now, great. Each time we go back up, we also come back down. Remember, there can be a 70, 80, 90% correction because even at that range, XRP is like $4, people would still take profit because if you bought XRP at 0.3, 0.4, you're still 10x in your money. So you may still start to take profit in a negative, at that time, there would be heavy amount of fraudsters in the market pushing as much as negative news into the market. So panic would still be there. But let's actually follow what we have done in this scenario, which was so bad. And that's exactly what we just talked about, the 80-85% drop. Now, if you say, okay, that means wave 1, we did a 15x, and wave 2, if we take that, that's a 100x. It's something similar. That's why I actually showed you here in SIA coin. Last time when you actually popped the 15x, the next wave was 120x. So it's possible in price action to do these kind of magical numbers. Why? Because it's on the back of real world utility. And this is not real world utility, which is for retail users. It's from the repository of money. The central banks, they have the money. They print the money. Unlike some corporations who have billions, a little bit, these guys are like, okay, I can print as much as I want, right? So that's repository of money working for us right now because we are positioned well enough on this asset. Great. Now, if that's true, and we say, okay, wave 1 usually is 2 to 3 times wave 3, but we are literally watching this popping through the roof because of the measured move here. And then we say, okay, if that's happening, wave 1 is usually kind of similar to that of wave 3. But in these cases, we watch that wave 3 happens to be 2 times wave 1. But let's stay conservative and let's actually put the argument like, okay, what if we actually do that 30x? We are moving somewhat closer towards $140, $150. But what if we stay as textbook pattern, right? The textbook pattern says like either equal or less than wave 1, which would mean it's somewhat close to $80. But yes, agreed. We all understand the fact that when the price go through these phases, it doesn't actually behave like we anticipated, moves a little bit above that. Say you use different indicators in the market. I've seen people using different indicators, and one of the favorite for a lot of people is fib. So say you actually use fib. What happens here? The price show you a target of 0.33, but the price actually goes to 0.43. So what does that actually mean in terms of the price action for XRP? It's 100% above. So you missed 100% run up. Now we actually take the next leg to see how high we can go. What happens? You get a top, and from that top, the price action goes up 180%. You see that, right? So on the macro levels, there's a huge difference. When you zoom in on micro movements, you kind of watch that, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. You almost got the top. Why? That's a micro movement. Then if you actually look at the next leg, you see like, okay, the price fell short. So when you use micro analysis, that anomaly comes valid. So on the macro leg, what do you just saw? The possibility of this stuff moving like this, which means the first leg up here, you're measuring to see like, okay, we usually do 100 to 200% above the measured move here. So it shows you around $8. So most likely you're going to reach to $16 to $20, $22 based on Fib and the price history. So it makes sense. Great. And from that region, if you're actually pulling back this 80%, say the price action then suggests to you that you're going somewhat like $117, $118. I've said this from 3-4 years here in this channel. And I strongly believe that's how things are evolving. Now, if you want to take a screenshot, take it. I'm not saying it's going to be $100. I'm saying there is a possibility that we would go close to 3 digits or just into 3 digits. Not the 1,000, 10,000, those crazy numbers right now with all we are watching. But keep this in mind. If they happen to announce a big central bank, which is in the G7, a big area, or the G20 countries like India and others, where the demographic stands to take over the world in the next 5, 10, 15 years, that means now those numbers would look tiny, teeny bit. So you need to really think about where you're going to take profits and make sure you do take profits. So at that note, I would remind, if you haven't actually smashed that like button, please consider doing that. It supports this channel a lot. And if you're looking for opportunities in the market, which really exist in some of these assets, if you really know where things are evolving and where the price action is breaking out or getting rejected, that may actually put you in an area where you may get trapped, right? So if you are looking for that kind of opportunities, you can look at the Patreon. The link is given in the description below. So that's it for today, guys. I'll meet you on the next video. Bye for now.